Hello everyone, this is part 19 of What If Naruto Leaves Konoha and Awakens Lava and Boil release, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Azu Island. Forests. Naruto was running, he was practically punishing his legs to gain speed. From what the monkeys told him, there was an intruder inside his village and he wasn't there to stop them. What about May? What about the civilians? He didn't have time to think, only to run. I'm never going to get there in time, I'll have to use her ration. He swatted another branch out of his way and turned to look over his shoulders. The red fur of the primates behind him was easy to spot and he was glad to see they were keeping up. There was no way they could continue as they were and get there in time, so he devised a new plan. I'm going on ahead, I'll summon you when I arrive. He didn't wait for them to acknowledge the order when he disappeared in a flash of gold. I won't let things turn out the way they did with Konoha, this time I'll stop them. Nobody is going to get hurt, that's a promise. Yamara and the others came to a stop, wondering if they heard him right. He said to wait, that he would arrive first and summon them. They glanced amongst one another, ominously awaiting the familiar tug of sorts on their bee. When it came, they all went at the same time through the summoning to help the Uzumaki against the unknown threat. Things were not as simple as they had first assumed, though, as they would soon find out upon their arrival. 000. Azugakur. Shinobi District. May stiffened her form and tightened her grip on the two scimitars in her hands, the curved handles with leather grips fitting comfortably in her hands. The Anbu around her shifted uncomfortably with the enemy's strange stance. He had his two arms up with his palms open and facing them. The other Akatsuki made sure to step back behind him before he unleashed his assault. Conan eyed him wearily. Nagato, you can't really be thinking of using that jutsu so soon. Especially when we aren't even supposed to fight. Why can't these people just move? His chakra is building up in a small sphere around him. He is preparing a technique. Ao shouted out, his hidden Byakugan was tensely observing the stoic pain as he prepared for his Shinra Tensei. We have to stop him. Don't let him use that technique. He could damage the city. A few Anbu leaped out of the crowd towards the center pane, his eyes narrowed at the untimely arrivals. I'm almost there, just a little more time. He thought as the Asura path moved in front of him and swatted two of the Anbu away with his arms, and the last one was to be impaled on the blade attached to his back. The path smirked as his inertia was going to send him right into the woman, making her unable to dodge. Sugihara gasped as she saw the man's trajectory and attempted to angle her body to avoid a fatal hit to her torso. It was useless though, he had aimed at her perfectly and it was all over. May gasped and the other Anbu watched in horror as the man impacted her, sending out fluids everywhere. Then they noticed it, the fluid was white and puffy. The Asura path scowled as it slid to a stop and checked its blade to find a large log impaled on it instead. Twisting its head around, it found purchase on the roof of a building. A tall blonde man in a Jonin uniform was holding the woman in his arms. He was glaring at the Akatsuki member with nothing but hate reserved for his sight. Is that the Nine Tails? It questioned quietly, and the other pains automatically homed in on where he was looking to observe the new prey. It was too late though, for the woman was already laying safe on the roof and all that was left of the man was a bit of dust kicked up. May's heart fluttered at the sight of him, but then her stomach sunk when she realized that he was playing right into their hands. Ow! Despite the desperate situation, was smirking underneath his mask, a true testament to the Azukage's ability to be able to arrive so quickly and simultaneously rescue the Anbu. I bet he could take all 7 of these guys down without us having to do a damn thing. Ah well, guess with us here it'll just be quicker. The 2 Anbu that were kicked had been sent into buildings on either side of the street. They were just beginning to climb out when a yellow flash appeared next to the Asura path and sent it flying into a building, shaking the foundation and almost collapsing in on itself. As soon as Naruto steadied himself from the kick, he had already bitten his thumb and was going through hand signs. 4 seconds since I arrived, gotta time this just right. He s his hand onto the ground, meaning the arrival of a summon was imminent. The familiar pop of smoke appearing was heard, but one had to look up to see the summons. At least a dozen lava monkeys stood on the rooftops of the buildings on either side of the crowded street. They were looking down on the Akatsuki with heavy glares as they immediately knew who the intruders were. Many of the Anbu switched between watching the Azuki and the summons, unsure of what either would do next. Naruto. Get out of here, they're after the Kyuubi, you don't know. Mei tried to stop him, but it was too late as a large lava wall was suddenly erected between the Azu forces and their cage. Naruto gave a faint smile to the warning as he stared at the ground in front of the Akatsuki. He appreciated his wife's concern, but this was his battle. He wouldn't let the villagers get hurt because of what was inside of him, he would deal with the intruders himself. The main path, Deva, slowly lowered its arms and the chakra used for Shinra Tensei disappeared. His ringed purple eyes bore into Naruto's blue ones and he opened his mouth to speak. Naruto Uzumaki. I have waited a very long time to see you, he said. The monotone voice somewhat unnerved Naruto, but he had to remind himself that these were the ones who killed Jiraiya. I can't underestimate them, and I can't say I'm not worried about the numbers. 7 against 1, this is gonna be a stretch. If you came looking for my tailed beast, sorry, but he's staying in my gut for a long time. You're just going to have to leave now, I won't tolerate your presence here. Naruto warned, he wasn't in the mood to deal with them after they had trespassed in his village. Deva didn't seem intimidated in the least, rather his straight face remained as he continued to speak his cryptic words. Nagato was not far from where they were, it would be a short run there if it came to that, if not, they could always drag the Jinchuriki there and make him listen. We are here to negotiate, not capture. Naruto's eyes widened at the offer, a diplomatic solution. It seemed too good to be true. No way is this guy being serious. Go through all this trouble to get here and all he wanted to do is talk. He even threatened my shinobi, there is no way he is that conceited. Diplomacy. Did you offer to negotiate with the other containers before you killed them? Ha! He spat out his words with venom, feeling the fiery vengeance, thinking of Roshi, the Four Tails container. Pain thought of his words and realized something. The boy had tasted pain before. He had felt it and savored it within his heart, waiting to exploit it and take revenge. A curve came to the usually stoic face of Deva, his thoughts on humans rang true even with the supposedly pure ones. You were also Jiraiya-sama's pupil for a time, were you not? As we were both once pupils of him, you should understand that everything I do I only do to find peace. Our methods may differ, but the end result is the end of suffering in the world. Naruto's eyes widened upon hearing that the man in front of him, Jiraiya's K, was in fact once a pupil of his. You were his pupil. How could you K him, in cold B? Pain shrugged, bringing Naruto's anger to boil again. He got in the way of my plan of peace, therefore I had to remove him. Naruto growled as he contemplated charging the man right now, not bothering to listen to what he had to say. Pain. Please stop this. Naruto turned his attention to the woman, a pale blue-haired beauty that had kept quiet up until now. She had moved out in front and was looking at the leader with pleading eyes. The man seemed to relax for a moment, although he was still unresponsive. She turned back towards him, extending an arm towards Naruto. He stiffened a bit in defense before he watched a piece of her coat come off and fold up like it was paper until it resembled a paper airplane. Do you remember when you last encountered one of these? Naruto began to shake his head no, since he couldn't remember, but when she sent it flying towards his face, that was when it hit him. It's the same one I found that night all those months ago. It gave me some sort of spoken message. Wait a second, her voice sounds familiar. Could she be the same one? That was you, wasn't it? You were trying to tell me about seeing me another time, or something, right? Conan nodded, bringing her airplane back and folding it back to her body. Contrary to what your shinobi believe, we really only came here to talk. We no longer associate ourselves with Akatsuki, so to speak. Pain just has trouble articulating his point in a specific manner. Naruto nodded, not in agreement but just to get her to keep talking since he still wasn't buying it. You see, we wished to speak to you about, she was interrupted by the louder, masculine voice of the Deva path which was glaring at her. Quiet, Conan, this is not the place to reveal all. Naruto Uzumaki, come with us so that you may see me, the real me. Naruto didn't understand what he meant but saw little choice in the matter. If anything, it would draw the Akatsuki away from the village and allow them to prepare. I'll be right back, I promise. 000. Azugakure, Shinobi District. As Naruto disappeared from the scene, the lava wall slowly crumbled. The forces on the other side were surprised to find that the Akatsuki were gone, along with Naruto. Mei's heart sunk to an all-time low and she found it hard to breathe. Tears threatened to well up in her eyes as she fell to her knees in pure shock and grief over the situation. Her husband, the Azukage, had just been taken by Akatsuki. Oh my god, I can't believe, we just let them go. Naruto, what happened? We gotta go after them. They took the Azukage, we have to go. They won't get away with this. A bellowing roar interrupted their protest and everyone looked for its source. They found it in Yamara, the generally polite and calm lava monkey. He was disappointed in the humans before him, they were fretting over their Azukage without knowing the full details. You should all calm down, the Azukage went with them willingly. They are not here to take him, only to talk. A general look of surprise came over their faces as they scrambled to find out where the Azukage had gone. He shouldn't have gone alone, it could have been a trap. Ao scowled at the thought that Naruto would be so reckless and trusting. Another part of him wanted to believe he knew what he was doing. I suggest you all return to your posts, the Azukage will be back soon. We will see to his safety personally. The lava monkey leader, Yomasha, warned the shinobi before he led his group back into the deep forest foliage of the jungle. Mei was gently picked up by a few Anbu, still in shock and having trouble breathing to move well on her own. The hurricanes had already been dispatched to the Azukage's residence to protect Roshi upon the news of Akatsuki and were waiting for her to arrive. Ao watched as they took the frightened woman away, surprised by how the once independent Mizukage could become so weak knowing her husband was in danger. He smiled in thought. She must really love him, there wasn't a man in Kiri that could have made her act that way. Guess Naruto was a blessing from Konoha after all. He looked around to find the Anbu waiting around for orders, some looking at him while others were talking amongst themselves. The Anbu general cleared his tea to get their attention and began issuing his orders. We are going to trust the Azukage on this one. Double the guard postings along the village's border and the rest disperse to your assigned guard posts. These Akatsuki may be friendly, but that doesn't mean we are out of trouble. Ao made his way to the Azukage tower to assert his position as temporary leader until Naruto returned, hoping the best for his leader and friend. Chojuro nodded in affirmation to Ao's orders and jumped away towards the gate with his squad. He felt very bad for Mei, his heart ached to see her in so much pain. Naruto had gotten to her first before he could admit his feelings, but knowing the innocent boy and their Uzumaki genes, Chojuro gladly gave up on his crush. Everything he had seen the two do so far just furthered his point of knowing they loved one another and he would do whatever it took to preserve the dreams of peace, no matter what the future held for him. Sugihara had recovered quickly after the Azukage had rescued her, again. While she hated to make it a habit, it still warmed her heart to know the Azukage had rescued her so many times. It furthered her own strength and drive to succeed and do her best for her leader and nation. After she received the general's orders, Sugihara led her squad to their original guard post, the northwestern wall section. While the events that happened in the shinobi district were well contained, a few Azu shinobi had noticed the events unfold. For the most they were surprised and concerned with the sudden appearance of Akatsuki but trusted their leader to be safe. The main force of Azu's shinobi corps was still at home as missions were still a rarity due to their low notoriety. A few of Naruto's more favored squads were outside of the village and on missions assigned to them by the civilian arm of Azu's government. But even if the shinobi economy was slow to start, the hard-working civilians of Azu were able to create and export numerous materials and a few products, thanks in no small part to Azu's rare natural resources. Things were looking up for Azu while for the rest of the world, things were only falling farther into darkness. 000. Konohagakure. Underground. Cells. Kakashi was sitting right where they left him, right in the middle of a dirty cell dozens of feet underground. He was still locked in the tight straitjacket and his Sharingan was locked away for good, giving him little ability to move around or see anything. It was dark, the only light source was the few candles outside of his cell that allowed him to assess his dreary surroundings with his one eye. All in all, Kakashi wasn't having a good time in jail. Why don't they just kill me and get it over with? This is tea. he sarcastically commented to himself as he reflected on the few days he had been in the cell, just sitting and waiting. Meals came and went, still no visitors had yet to come either. The guards who were brave enough to speak to him told him that Sunad had a time planned to come and speak with him, but she never did. At first he made up excuses why she didn't come. She was delayed. A meeting must have came up. Sakura got into an argument with her. Had to go to and do something for the alliance. Today just isn't my day. She hates me. It only served to lower his morale even farther than he thought possible. It would be sad to see how the stoic and laid-back man that was Kakashi Hatake had fallen so far. All for one insignificant ideal that was being treated like dirt by the people of the village. He didn't want to be martyr for something that had no hope from the start, but he wished people would simply listen to what he had to say. The jingling of keys startled him awake from his musings and had him look towards the cell opening. A few voices could be heard farther down the hallway, where the door was to enter his cell area. One was the gruff male guard that was to be standing there 24 hours a day. He didn't really like Kakashi for some odd reason. The other was a feminine voice with a strong undertone to it, to which Kakashi immediately identified as Sunad. Well, she's going to start reading my rights probably. How I'm enled to a few last words before they came me. Geez, give me a break. Kakashi. You look horrible. He noticed that the pig-tailed woman now stood in front of his cell. Her hands were on her hips and the common scowl was plaguing her face. He looked down, somewhat feeling shameful about his appearance before looking back up at her and shrugging. Why bother apologizing anymore? He was going to anyway. Sorry, Hokage-sama. I don't really have much time to beauty myself with my arms in this jacket. He accentuated his point by attempting to move his arms or fingers only for the jacket to tighten around him. Sunad sighed and crossed her arms. The once angry face was now softening. Kakashi was surprised by the change and stopped moving to see what she would say next. Why did you do it? Give me a straight answer, Kakashi. While her visage was soft and forgiving, her tone was harsh like a practiced leader's. Despite himself and the dreary situation, Kakashi chuckled upon hearing her question. You know, Hokage-sama, he started out saying, fidgeting slightly. I really am starting to forget the original cause of my actions with how many times that question has been asked. I'll just say what I remember. I stand by my friends and I believe in those that have a destiny to fulfill. Naruto has a destiny to fulfill. It was obvious since before he was born. I want to help in any way I can, as long as I'm not outright attacking this village that I still love very much. All I want for this world from myself is peace, Hokage-sama, and I think Naruto is the one to do it. She looked him once over, the hazel eyes wandering his form to try and find any inkling he was lying. So you thought you would help bring peace to the world by giving an 18-year-old the three-tailed beast? Where is the logic in that? He just shook his head at her ignorance and continued. We gave him the 9 tails. His parents gave him that power because they knew. They knew before any of us that he would make use of it one day. He never used it for evil, like the fox surely wanted. No, his parents' trust in him was well-founded. It is us who need to learn to trust him. He won't use that tailed beast for anything but safekeeping. He is a Jinchuriki himself. What will he do? Hand it over to Akatsuki. Send it on a warpath to Konoha just like Madara did the 9 tails. His voice raised in volume as he spoke, his anger getting the better of him. Sunad's eyes widened at the passion in his speech. She had not been expecting that. Kakashi, just what do you see that the rest of us can't? Sunad asked herself as she prepared to speak again when a runner arrived at the cell door. Hokage-sama, we just received news from Kumo. Their expedition with Iwa to recover the 6 tails has failed. Akatsuki has taken the Jinchuriki. Their eyes widened at the fact, and Sunad was quickly advised to head to her office to prepare for an emergency meeting between Kage. She spared Kakashi one last passing glance before leaving him alone again. The man sighed as he heard the door shut and everything returned to the boring monotony he had contented himself with the past few days. His talk with the woman was unenlightening. In fact, he didn't expect to receive any response from her. Still, with little else to do in his lonely dirt cell, Kakashi pondered what Sunad was going to say before the messenger interrupted her. Naruto, where are you now? What are you doing? 000. Azu Island. Nagato's hideaway. It wasn't long until the party of 8 arrived at a small mountain area where a natural cave had formed. Naruto noted with intrigue its relative height compared to sea level and wondered to himself why Pain chose such a strange spot to set up. The 7 Akatsuki passed him by at the cave's entrance, silently beckoning him farther in. With little choice, Naruto pressed on until he arrived in a small chamber where the 6 Pains stood in front of a figure. He couldn't make out the man but could tell that he wasn't normal looking. The man was easily taller than the Pains that stood in front of him, somewhat blocking Naruto's view. His red hair was a dark crimson and fell over his right eye, obscuring the ringed purple iris. Naruto's eyes widened when he looked back at the one revealed eye. It was the same as Pain's. Was this man what they meant by the real me? Naruto Uzumaki, I finally see you face to face. His raspy voice sent shivers down Naruto's spine while his unmoving gaze on Naruto made him feel small. I won't bother asking how you know my name since it is obvious, and I will just get straight to the point. What do you want here? The Pains shuffled to either side of the chamber to reveal the man in his entirety, locked to some machine and his skeleton thin body revealed to be jabbed into by metal rods of some sort. Naruto almost flinched and visibly recoiled at the sight of his revealed form. How could anyone allow themselves to fall so far? Was it all for his ambitions? Why would he allow himself to waste away? The man coughed and Naruto thought some of the spittle looked ruby red like B but said nothing. Already he could tell the man was straight to the point. That is something I can appreciate. As Conan has already told you, we no longer align ourselves with Akatsuki. The ideals of what we started with have changed. I can no longer pursue the goals when they hypocritically bring the one who caused me the greatest pain of my life into our organization. Naruto racked his brain for who he could be speaking of when it hit him. Danzo. Do you mean Danzo of the Leaf? The Deva path automatically curled its fists in anger and Conan shifted uncomfortably, confirming Naruto's answer. I see. I'm sorry. If he acknowledged the apology, he at first made no attempt to show it. Your apologies. He coughed again and took a deep, raspy breath. Will do nothing to ease our pain, only waste more time which I do not have. My name is Nagato and I have come here to tell you a few things. You will listen and perhaps you will learn something. Maybe you can even fulfill my wish by answering a question for me that even Jiraiya-sensei could not answer. Naruto took a moment to register what had been said and was shocked to hear the honorific Nagato used with Jiraiya's name. Wait, Jiraiya-sensei. That means that you were. Nagato nodded slowly in assent to his unasked question. Yes, Conan and I were once pupils of Jiraiya. As was our friend, Yahiko. Naruto saw the blue-haired woman Conan again cringe at the name of Yahiko and guessed that it was a sore spot. We grew up in Omegakure, orphaned by a war that was neither ours to begin with nor our wish for to continue. The war between Konoha, Iwa, and Suna only destroyed our lives and led us to feel great pain. Have you contemplated pain before? Why it happens, what causes a human to react to it and how to stop it? Naruto just shook his head. He had never paid any attention to the feeling that he had come to know well. No. Having been a Jinchuriki, my life growing up was harsh and I constantly felt pain, both mentally and physically. I never knew my parents though, so I suppose that in the way of feeling pain that was a blessing in disguise. Am I right? Nagato seemed surprised by his answer but nodded nonetheless. Yes, I watched my parents kill right before my very eyes by 2 Konoha shinobi. That was the day I unlocked my Rinnegan and the day I became a war orphan. I killed the shinobi with my powers without realizing it. With nothing left in my village, I buried my parents and left home with no goal but to survive. I stumbled around for days with nothing but a raincoat and supplies taken from home. I even came across a dog that I at first found as a nuisance but soon found a companion in. When I ran out of food, I felt as though there was nothing left to do but as I collapsed onto the muddy ground in the rain. That was when Conan found me. That was when I met my first friends. Naruto glanced towards the woman to find her staring at Naruto, gauging his reaction. Yahiko was a great dreamer. He had hopes for the world that I first thought unattainable. He wanted to stop the war, just like we all did, but his dreams did not stop there. To stop the war, he believed it was necessary to become God and rule the world, and as we traveled together. I began to believe it too. One day, we were stumbling through a rocky crevice when a rain of explosive tags hit near us and scattered our party. My dog unfortunately was hit and and we found the combatants to be none other than the legendary Sannin versus the Tyrant of Am, Hanzo. Naruto was surprised to hear of this. Realization dawned on him as he realized that the war was the second great shinobi war. We waited until after the battle to approach the three. Yahiko of course went first. I warned him, told him not to trust Konoha shinobi, but he said we had little choice. The pale one, Orochimaru, at first threatened to kill us. He spoke of it as ending our pitiful suffering. Jiraiya was the one to support us though and promised to stay with us for a while, saying it was the least he could do. With that in mind, we soon became a family and lived together in a modest home. It was one of the few times I actually had felt happy, in the right place. Naruto continued to listen to the man's past, the history of his pain. Nagato took a moment to breathe before continuing, his voice becoming strong again. After Yahiko was threatened by a shinobi and almost killed, Jiraiya's sensei taught us ninjutsu. All three of us excelled at it, and it was not long before he felt it was time for him to go. In the process of living with us, our master had been writing a book. It was called The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi, and it was our teacher's attempt at explaining the endless cycle of hatred and a way to stop it. He never completed it, but I thought maybe I could be the one in the book and be the one to finish the final chapter. After he left, we began to gather a group of followers with similar ideals of peace. We were the Am Gang. Naruto immediately recognized the book Nagato spoke of, actually having a copy of it in his Azu home's library. He dared not to interrupt the man as he continued to tell his life story. With rising power brought enemies and suspicion, the major one being Hanzo. He was a paranoid man, frightful of any who seemed close to wresting control away from him. When he found out about our group's rising popularity, he had no choice but to recognize us. While he extended a hand to shake in peace, he brought outside help, Konoha's root forces to help him destroy us. He promised to seek peace, even allowing Yahiko to be the lead ambassador in the talks with the major nations. We were to meet at a designated time the next day, only of which Yahiko and I could go to. As we soon learned though, it was a trap. Naruto already didn't like the sound of where the story was going, and he definitely did not like this Hanzo that Nagato spoke of. We were at the meeting spot where on a higher platform of rock stood Hanzo, looking down on us with hate. To either side of him was either his loyal Am shinobi or Rutanbu soldiers, ready to follow his orders to the letter. The worst of it though, for both me and Yahiko was seeing Konan captured right next to the Am village leader. He threatened us, told us that we were threats to his power and that the only way he would let her go was if I killed Yahiko with my own hands. He even threw a kunai at my feet. I was shocked, unmoving in disbelief. Naruto again looked at Konan to see her looking at the ground in a mixture of shame and remembrance. He realized that this was Nagato's source of greatest pain. With trembling hands, I picked up the kunai and looked at my longtime friend, not knowing what to do. When I looked into his eyes, I could see a fiery determination only Yahiko, a born leader, could possess. He knew exactly what he had to do, even if he would not tell me. With an authoritative yet desperate tone, he yelled at me to kill him to save Konan. I was further confused by Konan's pleas to run away and forget about her. I didn't know what to do. His voice raised a bit too much and he coughed more, coming to the edge of his lips and threatening to spill. Konan turned towards him in concern. Nagato, please calm down. You can't overexert yourself. The red-haired man looked at her and merely shook his head, turning his attention back to Naruto. I know Konan, but the boy needs to hear this. I want to share my pain, so he may know and reflect what it truly means. She quieted down after that, albeit reluctantly. Yahiko always had a plan, and when he saw that I would do nothing, he took matters into his own hands. With a sudden leap towards me, he grabbed my wrist that held the kunai and plunged it deep into his sea, effectively K himself. He whispered a few last words to me, telling me to get Konan and get away, that I was meant to do something great with my special eyes. Hanzo then attempted to betray us a second time, launching an attack on me as I held my friend. I was able to avoid his trap and rescue Konan, every last one of them except for Hanzo himself. That is my greatest source of pain. Now that you know what results from the current cycle, can you tell me how to end it? Naruto was blown away by the question. He had never given it much thought at all. He took a moment to reflect on himself, thinking of the cycle and what it meant to him. At first, he had foolishly believed that Kei Madara, seemingly the big villain in all of this, would just magically make everything go away. He knew that was wrong though, there was no simple solution like that. Kei Madara would only bring rise to another Madara, another enemy. That was when he remembered two things that had happened to him that could help solve the puzzle. He remembered the strange encounter he had with the vault room within his estate. The answer over war was love. Love came with understanding and understanding led to acceptance. The second was the name of the main character of the novel both Nagato and Naruto had read. It was his name, Naruto. Before I answer, may I guess yours? Nagato was surprised that the boy had even come up with one in such a short amount of time but nodded anyways. You believe that through inflicting pain on the world, they will come to fear it and do away with anything that leads to death or loss. Nagato nodded, although he wasn't too impressed with how obvious it was. His moniker was Paran. My answer is that I will be the one to break the cycle. The name of the main character of Jiraiya's book, what was it? Nagato thought for a moment before realization came to him. The word was whispered from his mouth with uncertainty, as if it was a fact he had overlooked. Naruto. He nodded and continued on. Jiraiya said that it was up to one of his apprentices to find the cycle of hate and end it. My father was unable to find the answer, and you yourself have given into any alternatives in place of false peace. My answer to it is love. All those present had their eyes widen in surprise at his simple answer, one that had surprised Nagato. Love. But how can love stop hate? It will only bring hatred when the love is replaced with pain. Naruto shook his head slowly in condescension. No. True love can open your eyes to understanding and enlightenment. With that understanding of another person, no matter who they are, comes acceptance and that becomes peace. What is left to do is to spread this, not only through words but through action as well. We cannot dwell here in caves while our enemies seek to destroy our advantage. Nagato, what will you do now? As the tables were turned on him by the blonde cage in front of him, Nagato could only stutter in response. 000. Kirigakure. Gates. It is time. I will finally have my time, my revenge. There is no more Jinchuriki, no Uzumaki, no Senju to get in my way. Today, I will finally crush the leaf with my own power. Madara stood at the gates of the city that had once been his now once again under his command. Dozens of shinobi stood by in attention while Sasuke himself stood side by side with Madara, his Sharingan eyes glowing red in the dark misty rain. The dozens of shinobi were not for a war, they would be annihilated in an instant. No, they were to carry Madara's real forces to the battlefield. 4 pots of varying sizes were on carts that were being towed by the shinobi. It was not that they were particularly large or heavy, it was the contents that made Madara nervously excited. 4-tailed beasts were contained in the pots, ready for transport and covered in seals to prevent them from escaping until the final moment he was ready to begin his conquest of the Land of Fire. I will finally have my revenge. It is a wonderful day. Sasuke, has Danzo done as I asked? The boy turned and glared at his master, nodding with a defiant look on his face. Yeah, he has sent his men to delay the cage at their summit. Konoha will be defenseless when we strike. Madara chuckled. It turned into an evil cackle quickly as he couldn't control the butterflies in his stomach just thinking of the destruction he would wreak upon his old home. Good. He purred out, his Sharingan twirled in excitement. Do you remember your orders? At this Sasuke smirked, hefting his sword and idly feeling the sharpened tip with his wandering fingers. Keep the Uzumaki busy. Of course I do. The masked man looked at his apprentice with a hidden smirk, one that could not be seen by the boy. Good Sasuke, make sure that Naruto Uzumaki or his people do not interfere with Konoha. They defeated me once as I defeated them. I will not allow them to take another victory. By any means necessary, you will break Naruto, do you understand? The rain ran down Sasuke's smirking face and Madara saw the look of pure happiness on the boy's visage, making him wonder if the boy had gone insane. I will make him beg to as I butcher his family in front of his eyes. With my powerful eyes and Uchiha B, nothing can stop me. Ha ha. Madara nodded and sent the boy off, hoping he would provide a good distraction. This is your only use to me Sasuke, as a mere puppet under my control. Hopefully you won't too soon, I need you to stay alive just long enough. Madara looked over his shoulder and waved for the men to follow him towards the docks. It was time to begin the Fourth Shinobi War. 000. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.